Hello, hello. Welcome to Jagu Lounge, everyone. Hey, Tom. How are you
Hey
doing?
Joel, hey everyone.
Thanks for joining us. So today we are talking about Tom's Europe trip. As you guys know, we like to do blueprints whenever someone takes a trip, whether it's cash or points or a combination, and just kind of break down how they took that trip. And Tom's was an excellent one to share, as you'll see. And yeah, Tom's put this show together for us to tell us all about that and how you can do the same on a future trip of yours. Sound about right, Tom?
Yeah,
Mostly a
definitely.
reproducible trip that people can do.
Yeah, and especially now there's, with Europe kind of just opening up. I know there's a wild card with the new variant or whatever, but there's a lot of great deals going to Europe and it's not super crowded. So a lot of good Rule 1 ideas out there.
Cool. I like it. I like it. Well, yeah, what have you got for us?
All right. So, and this is, I think Brooke commented, this is a lot less dense than my normal presentations.
Yeah, we
So
were all
less
taking
headache inducing.
serious notes on the last one.
So yeah, I put, international travel is back, kind of. Um, so more countries are opening up. The US is open to a lot of countries now. Europe is open to a lot of countries. You're starting to see travel back. If you look at some of the airline maps, it's still not where it was in 2019, but it's getting there. You're seeing a lot more international routes coming back up. A lot more hotels are opening up, and they're all eager to welcome back visitors. So there's a lot of good deals out there. Some challenges with some of the different COVID restrictions and rules, which at the end I kind of went through each of the three countries and how they were all slightly different. So that's something to look out for. But yeah, a lot of great deals out there. So I last minute booked a 17-day trip uh, right around the end of October, early November. 17 days in Italy, Austria, and Germany. So I wanted to go through, yeah, mostly Rule 1, a little bit of Rule 2, and then talk about some of the restrictions and things like that. Let's see. So for the flights, so I was looking, if everyone doesn't know, I'm based in Boston. So I was looking at Boston to Rome. And I was seeing it was about $700 to $800 for economy and about $1,200 for premium economy. And I was trying different options, Google Flights and ITA Matrix. And I know we've kind of talked about open jaws, which might be a slightly advanced topic, but for those that don't know, an open jaw would be flying from point A to B and then B to C. So it means that you're not doing a full round trip. There's an open there. And so I was playing around and I found that from New York, which is a quick reposition for me, um, there was a flight that was JFK to Milan and then from Rome back to JFK. And that ended up being, what was it, 451 for premium economy with Delta, which is an awesome deal. So that's almost half of what you were getting for economy for just Boston to Rome round trip, and it was only $50 for me to get a cheap AA flight from Boston to JFK, and so that actually worked out pretty well. So we're looking at just over $500 for the full the reposition and the trip to Rome. So that's a really good deal.
And just for the sake of comparing to like the $120 rule, how does that compare? About how long is a flight is that?
This was about an 8-hour flight.
Okay. So like based on the $120 rule, which is just an arbitrary benchmark that we like to use, that's basically 960 is what market rate for that flight would be. And as Jay Gooters, that's kind of our rule of we don't want to pay more than that for business class or half of that for for coach. So basically anything under half of that is a great deal that odds are you're probably not going to get a good, you're not going to beat that deal with points. And this is under that. So kind of a no-brainer, like 450. That's right under that threshold of what we're looking for of the max rule that we want to pay. Remember, we have that printout that you get first part of your home study course, like don't pay more than these prices. So Tom fit the $120 rule. Did you, like, at that price, Tom, did you even bother looking at points, or was it kind of like, no, this is a good deal and I'll snatch it up?
No, yeah. Once I found that and I was like, this is a good deal, so I bought it, but I paid for it with my Amex Platinum, so I got 5x points on it.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was premium economy too, which if
Oh, yeah.
anyone hasn't flown premium economy, it's sort of halfway between business and economy. So the seats weren't quite what you get for domestic first class, but it was only two per row, two per column rather. So it was just 2 by 2, and then in the middle they had 4, versus economy was 3 by 4 by 3. So it was nice to just have 2 seats to ourselves. Although the plane was probably only half full anyways, and you also got 2 meals in that flight over and 2 meals on the flight back. So it's a little nicer in premium economy, and you get earlier boarding, which again, this flight wasn't full, so that didn't matter too much. But normally you get early boarding, so you get to make sure you have overhead bin space before everyone else.
Nice. Well, that just makes it that much better of a deal, because that's for basic economy, like our $120 rule. And you paid under that threshold for premium economy. So nice work.
Yeah, it's a killer deal. And that's why it's, it may be a little bit more of an advanced topic, but if you look around for positioning, like for me to go to New York, I can either take a train or a 35-minute flight. So it's pretty quick to get over there. So, I know some people aren't so close to another city, but it's always worth looking around at different places around you. And funny story, on the $50 round trip American Air cheap economy flights, I ended up getting upgraded and on the way back, and for some reason they were flying an A321T, which is a special edition of that plane that just flies east to west coast, so it has lie flat seats. So again, it's a 35-minute flight, but it was kind of funny that I got the upgrade because of my status with American, and we had lie flat seats between JFK and Boston.
Yeah, that's impressive all around. Now, was this a true, like, did you plan on going to Rome, or did you say, I got a break and I'm going to go where the deal is?
Yeah, I wasn't planning on going to Rome, actually. I was going to try to just do northern Italy, so like Venice and then into Germany and Austria, but the deal was so killer. I was like, well, Rome's not exactly a terrible place. I was like, well, I'll add Rome. So it kind of changed the trip around a little bit, but for that much savings, that's we saved enough to stay a couple nights in Rome anyway, so that worked out well.
Nice. So yeah, true Rule 1 trip. That's great.
Yeah. And plus, actually, Rome, I was surprised. Last time I was in Rome was 2019. And, around the tourist sites like Trevi Fountain and stuff, everyone's, it's shoulder to shoulder, 4 rows deep. And, this time it was still busy, but it was a lot of locals, and it was just one row of people around the fence. So it was really easy to go in, take a picture, and kind of take it in without being like, all pressed together like that. So it's definitely a nice time to visit, especially if you're not a huge fan of crowds. But the hotel,
Jerry, so I think it looks like you're going to get into that, but Jerry's going in August, so he's looking forward to where you stayed. Looks like
nice.
You're just about to tell us that.
Yeah, and I did mostly Rule 1 for the hotel too. I think there was one that I booked on points, but yeah, I'll kind of walk through what I did. So I used some of the travel credits we have with the card. So the first place we stayed was the Hotel Bologna, which is actually in Verona, not Bologna. And that was $150 a night. I just did one night there. Verona's sort of 2 days in Verona is probably enough. You get to see the Romeo and Juliet stuff, but it was 150 a night, but with the Chase Sapphire Preferred, we get the travel portal $50 hotel credit. So I booked it through the Chase portal. And so I got that down to 100. They really don't have any chain hotels in Verona. So this was a boutique little hotel. It was really, really nice. It was right on the main piazza, like overlooking everything. So, it's not a Hyatt, so no upgrade or anything like that, but still not a bad deal. And then from there, we went to Munich for 3 nights. So I stayed at a Hilton. I got a decent rate that was, struggling with math, that like $120 a night ish. And this is a nicer 4-star hotel right in the heart of everywhere you want to be in Munich. There was actually an Andaz that looked really, really nice. It was a little more expensive. But as a globalist, I would have gotten the upgrade, but it was like a 20-minute metro ride from everything you'd want to be versus this was like a 5 or 10-minute walk. So I ended up going with the Hilton. Yeah, and because I have lifetime diamond status with Hilton, I did get upgraded to a suite, which was nice anyways. And I also included a little column too to say whether or not they had breakfast, because usually when I'm traveling, we'll only have 2 meals a day. So we'll do either a breakfast or a lunch and then sort of a big dinner with wine and all that. So, saving a ton of money with by having breakfast at the hotel can help kind of cut some of the costs too.
Now, Tom, you're new to Globalist, right? How would you rate your experience so far with Diamond? Like, I think that's probably a better apples to apples comparison. Like Diamond with Hilton versus Gold, which a lot of us have, compared to Globalist. How would you compare them?
Yeah, I started probably a little before 2021. I think it was like November 2020. And I was like, I saw that Hyatt was doing some sort of promos. It wasn't the get Globalist in half the time yet, and I tried it out because Hyatt seems to have a little more of a boutique feel to some of its properties, which I like. But I stay at Hilton a lot because Hilton's everywhere. So if I'm traveling for work, a lot of times there's either a Hilton or a Marriott, and there is no Hyatt. But so I have Hilton Diamond. I have lifetime because I've done more than 10 years where I've had like 100 nights or whatever. And I would say I get upgraded less frequently, or at least, I would say less frequently than I do with Hyatt Globalist. And this is my first year as a Hyatt Globalist. And, add to that, a lot of the hotels for Hilton tend to be very business focused. So they're a little more plain versus a lot of the Hyatts, like especially the ones that I stayed at here, they were all sort of boutique, independent ones. So they feel a little more unique, which I enjoy. But yeah, I've found that Globalist gets a lot more updates and a lot more recognition. Although I will say Hilton Diamond outside of the US gets a lot more recognition. But in the US especially, like most of the time I don't even get an update.
Okay. Good feedback.
Yeah, one thing I did learn early on with hotels, though, is a lot of times an upgrade could be the same exact room, just 2 floors up. So I think sometimes you have to, kind of set expectations a little bit with getting upgrades, that it's, you might not get the penthouse suite every time, but Hyatt seems a little more generous with the types of rooms you get. A lot of times with Hilton, even if you get an upgrade, it's like on the club level floor where you get access to the lounge, or it'll, have a slightly better view, but it's the same size room. Hyatt seems a little more generous.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my screensaver keeps going on.
Yeah, I just went last weekend and they upgraded me to the top area. 2 of us, Brooke's husband, Daryl, happens to be there, and both of us got top level. They had like, I don't know, 150 kind of standard room units and like 10 executive level. His was called the billiard room. I forget what mine was. Mine was the bar room. I had a bar with a wine fridge, a kitchen, and all that, and they just gave it. I didn't even have to ask.
Oh, nice.
I was all like prepped and ready to, do my work by magic at the desk, and they just gave it.
Yeah, to me, and I'm not just saying that because we, recommend Hyatt a lot in the group, but to me, I've the treatment a Hyatt Globalist gets compared to Hilton Diamond, and that is apples to apples, it's vastly different. And Hyatt just seems to really go out of the way and more to kind of treat globalists better, which is nice.
That's fantastic.
Let's see. So the next night, we stayed in Hallstatt in Austria, and that's another place where there's only boutique hotels. They don't have any of the big names there. So I use hotels.com a lot. I know some people like Expedia, some people use Kayak Booking, whatever you want. I like hotels because I don't really use it anymore, but the Capital One card I had got 10x points there. I still don't value Capital One points that much, so I put this on my Amex Platinum anyways, but my Chase Sapphire anyways for the 2x points. But then hotels, every like 7 nights you get a free night, so that's usually if I go somewhere where there's no hotels that I have a membership with, I'll just go with hotels.com.
Now, I just read this on the forum too. Like, I've heard that hotels.com gets, I've often heard that Expedia, you get a little bit of, like treated like a second class citizen. Like if it's a full hotel, anyone with any status is going to be better off. And, but I've heard hotels is a little bit different. In fact, like after like 10 stays with them, I think I read like you actually get a little bit of like status treatment.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I have that. It's Hotels VIP, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. And if you do, I think you're right. I think it's 10 stays, and I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it is much different than just getting a rate off Expedia. Sometimes you'll get upgrades or you'll get perks thrown in. Like for this one here, the breakfast isn't normally included, but they gave me breakfast. My German is so I wasn't sure if that was a miscommunication and they accidentally gave it to me, or if that was because of hotels.com, but I still ate it.
Nice.
But yeah, that's true. The hotels, and I think Booking does that as well, because I use Open Table quite a bit to make reservations, and you get like 100 points per reservation, which is like $1. But you also, after so many reservations, you get Booking VIP, which gets you similar perks and like special discounts. So if you do use one of those a lot, but it's not as valuable as Chase or Amex, but there's definitely some little perks to those too. Let's see, and then
good to know. And here, Tara is staying there in a few months at the Goldgast
at Heritage Hotel.
At the
Goldgast.
Yeah.
Goldgast was beautiful. I almost didn't book it, and I'm so glad I did. There was the rates were like $350, $400 a night. When I was looking, and I was like, I'll just book a boutique hotel for cheaper, but I like the look of it, and I booked it, and the nicest people were running it, and it was a Hyatt property, but it's a small luxury hotel partnership, so it's a small boutique place, and like the woman that was running the hotel, she like gave us a tour of our room. She made us cocktails with like an elderberry liqueur. Like the food was excellent for breakfast. It was top notch. It was located right in like the shopping district where they don't allow cars to drive, so you're walking around all these stores and coffee shops. That was amazing. I'm so glad we stayed there, and it was only 25K Hyatt points, which is a lot cheaper than paying $400 a night. It was very, very, very nice.
Now on that, so that's an SLH hotel, which is, in my experience, they're a lot more stingy with status and upgrades. What was your experience with that?
Yeah, no upgrade there, but they did honor the free breakfast, which is cool.
Yep.
I've stayed at a couple SLH, and yeah, some of them won't give you free breakfast, or they'll do something like I stayed in Mexico at an SLH, and I think they gave me like a $10 meal credit per day, which covered most of a breakfast.
Right.
But yeah, SLH, the way their partnership works is they don't always honor a lot of the Hyatt stuff, but
Yeah, that's been my experience too. I mean, they gave me a deal on an upgrade, but that was about it. And we got a free breakfast too on our last stay at an SLH. Still a beautiful hotel and still like a great redemption. I think ours was like 1.6, 1.8 cents. So
yeah, I stayed at two. The last one too. The Hotel Lord Byron was SLH, and that was absolutely stunning. That was I ended up using 2 free night certs for it, so it was no cash, no points.
mm-hmm.
But it was I think normally it's like 500 a night, and it's in this beautiful private mansion in like the embassy area of Rome. And I forget whose mansion it was, but it's, if you like architecture, it's perfect Art Deco style, and like the halls are made out of marble, and there's like a champagne bar downstairs and a little piano bar. It was gorgeous. Yeah, SLH has some very, very nice properties, but yeah, same thing. There's no upgrade there at all.
Mm-hmm. So there we go. We've got SLH. You'll be lucky for that. Vegas, not much treatment. Those are probably the 2 places with Hyatt where you don't want to hold your breath on the VIP treatment. Any other ones you can think of?
No, I think because the other Hyatt partners like Joie de Vivre and stuff, they tend to give upgrades. But yeah, Vegas, and I actually gave a talk, I think last year. We did a whole thing on Vegas and how they value things, and they basically don't care about even their own status. When I go out, I do play quite a bit, so like I'll get upgrades, but it's entirely based on your play, basically.
Right.
Which isn't always the most financially responsible way to get room upgrades.
We can save that for another side topic.
Yeah.
You and Andy and Joe can share stories.
Yeah.
You seem to have a pretty good contingent of gamblers in the group.
Yeah. Let's see. So this one here was in Venice, Italy. This was a nice sort of vintage style hotel. It was further away from the strip. I forget the name of the street, but it was the street where basically they said all the locals go to eat. So you couldn't really even tell there was a hotel there, but it was beautiful. It was $683 for 3 nights, which is pretty expensive, or at least for what I mean, it was probably worth it. It was a 4-star property, but for me that was expensive. But I booked it through the Amex Hotel Collection, which has a $200 credit, this year for hotel, and the Hotel Collection for Amex Platinum and Amex Gold card holders gets a room upgrade, breakfast for 2, and an on-property credit, which we didn't use that because with COVID the spa was closed, but it was a nice little hotel, and again ended up with breakfast, and then getting the $200 back was brought it down to $483, which is a little easier to swallow.
So you were using every angle possible. Chase,
yeah.
Amex credits, points, certificates, and a plain old cash on hotels.com.
Yeah. Yeah. And
nice.
I did this Florence, the Hotel Alessandra, that was $440, and I just booked it through Chase Travel and just paid cash. No tricks there. Same with the Tribune. That was another hotel in Rome. That was a Joie de Vivre collection, and that I just paid, my Chase card, the Chase Sapphire, and booked it through Hyatt. So nothing tricky with those ones, but yeah,
Well, there's a little bit, right? Because you got 10x points for the Florence booking by doing it through the portal.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, actually, I forgot about that in the end where I calculated the points. I'll have to redo my numbers because I forgot they changed that. Good thing you reminded me.
All these things we have to keep track of, and then they keep changing them,
I know.
including possibly getting rid of 524. I'm gonna have to throw out all my curriculum of why we start with Chase.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
So these were the hotels I did. So you can see I tried to stick to around like $110 to $120 a night. That's where I kind of felt comfortable. And through some of these tricks and everything, we ended up sticking to that. So,
and that's well below rack rate for those areas. Those are all expensive areas, wouldn't you say? Like,
oh yeah,
you could spend that on a budget hotel. The areas you traveled, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and these were mostly 4-star hotels. I didn't include pictures because that would have just taken another 30 minutes. But yeah, these were all 4-star hotels, very, very nice in prime areas. But it's a combination of kind of doing little tricks to make sure I got the best price, and then also just a lot of them are really aggressive with the deals right now because the country's just reopening, people are just coming back out, and so a lot of them have some very attractive prices because they want people to come back out. So and I'm looking into all the way through next summer, airlines, hotels, they all seem to have great deals going to Europe. I think Europe's been closed almost 2 years now, and they're starting to open, and they definitely want the business. So if you're planning a trip, it seems like now is probably a good time.
Nice. Well, it makes me that much more excited about the ones we booked. And another one, chat going, is heading to Istanbul and Cappadocia
Nice.
in a couple of weeks, and Prague. So yeah, this is good, timely information for a bunch of us.
Yeah. And one thing, I just put a quick note about getting around. So getting between some of these cities, I just did trains. So it's, here in New England, we have a lot of trains. So I guess we're used to that. I know some parts of the country don't have as many trains. But it's really easy to take a train. Like I did from Verona to Munich was like a 3-hour train ride. And that was $120 each for first class seats. Totally worth it in my opinion. You could fly, like there were some cheap like intra-Europe flights, and that some of them were even less, but I was like, we'll just do the train, it's easy. Plus for this specific train route, you actually go through these like mountains and valleys, so it's really good scenery too. So that, and then in cities and towns, again in the Northeast, everyone just walks everywhere, so we're just used to walking. To walk 20-30 minutes is nothing around here, so we'll walk a lot of the cities or take a local train, or subway. And then Uber was is prevalent too. I don't think Lyft has much of a presence, but yeah, Uber, and Uber was actually very, very cheap compared to up here. Uber can be, from one side of the city to the other can, be $30-$40. Around here for like Rome, going from one side to the other was like $10, and it's all black cars. So you'd get like a Mercedes E-Class picking you up for $10, driving you for 20 minutes across the city. So it was a easy way to get around, and I try not to rent cars if I don't have to, and this made it easy. Plus, if you have the Amex Platinum or the Amex Gold, both those cards give you Uber credits. So I have both, so I get $45 a month to spend with Uber. So for me that was sort of a wash anyways.
Nice. That's always my biggest debate. Like, do I take my free Uber credit or my 10x Lyft points? I use up the credit, but then I'm torn on how expensive it's going to be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes I'll have both, and I'll compare them and do the math in my head.
Isn't it funny how much we start to geek out? Like once you know what you can do with a point, like it's not worth it for a penny a point, but when you know how to redeem them for a lot more, it's worth the effort.
Yeah, definitely is.
And Stephanie, before we transition, Stephanie was just saying Uber is all over Europe. Stephanie works for Uber, and they're partnering with taxis to get even more drivers out too.
I noticed that in where was it? Was it Munich? No, Salzburg, Austria. We got off at the train station, and one of the benefits to ordering an Uber is you don't have to worry about the language barrier. Because sometimes you get into a taxi and you're trying to tell the driver where you want to go, and most areas can usually speak English or I can hash together something. But with Uber, it's nice because you just say, I'm going from here to here.
Right.
Here's the price. You don't have to worry about anything. But the car that showed up was a taxi. It was a Mercedes, but it had a taxi medallion on it and a taxi tent or whatever you call the sign on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting, but I booked it through Uber. So
interesting. I can't say I've done that.
let's see. So yeah. So COVID, I actually broke this into 3 parts because every country seems to have a slightly different take on COVID, which I feel like it wouldn't be so annoying if every country just sort of said, okay, here's what we're doing. But the fact that it's here and then this over here kind of makes it a little crazy. But some tips and tricks to kind of get through it all. So Italy was a little more complex just because I was flying into Italy. So in order to board the flight in New York, I had to get an antigen test. Italy doesn't require PCR. They have antigen, which I've always found easier. And you have to show that you're vaccinated to get out of quarantine. So if you have a negative test but no vaccine, you still have had to quarantine. I think they might be changing it now with some of the variants, but at the time I went and I had both shots, so I didn't have to quarantine. In Mass, at least, I don't know if it's the same in every state, but we have free tests like everywhere. You can just walk into a CVS and get a test, and in 30 minutes you have your thing. So that was easy. I also used Clear, which as Amex Platinum, we get a credit to use. I highly recommend that just because it breezes you through the airport. But their app also has your vaccine information, and it makes a QR code. And everywhere in Europe, they scan your QR code. And I don't know how many people are from the Northeast, but a lot of places in the Northeast will scan a QR code. If you want to dine indoors or go to a museum or go to a concert, you have to, scan a code to show that you're vaccinated here. So that was similar there as well. We also had to fill out a passenger locator form. Not sure what exactly that did because you just say the first place you're going. So I was there for 17 days and the form just said I was at this in Verona, Italy for one night. So I'm not 100% sure the purpose of that. I didn't have to print it out. I just filled it out on my phone and showed it to the Delta agent. And they just sort of said, yes, I had it, and I was allowed to board. Once I got to Italy, nobody checked anything because Delta checked all this on the way there. So once we landed in Italy, pretty much, take your passport, go through passport control, grab your bag, and you're out. We didn't have to show anyone paperwork or tests or anything in Italy. And once there, as I kind of said about the QR codes, if you wanted to get to a train, if you wanted to go into a museum, you want to eat indoors at a restaurant, you had to use, they call it the Green Pass. They weren't able to scan my Clear code, but on the Clear code, you can click like advanced and it shows you or details, I think, and it shows you the dates you got your shot. So we would just show them our phones, and they would look through and say, all right, you're fully vaccinated, and they would let us in. And they were also strict. I would say museums, trains, and like bigger things like that were very strict about masks as well in Italy. Restaurants, not so much there. They were kind of like 50-50 on the masks. They were very strict about the vaccinations, though. You had to show your pass to get into a restaurant, but like the masks, they were kind of 50-50 on. In terms of
now,
restriction.
Tom, do you know on this? Lisa asked, do they consider the Johnson & Johnson shot to be fully vaccinated? Do they honor all of the types of vaccinations in the U.S.?
I believe so. I'd have to double check. My wife and I got Pfizer, but yeah, I believe it was Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Astra, Moderna. There were some that were excluded. So the Sinovac, the what's the Russian one called? Novavax, whatever. The Russian one and the Chinese one, I don't believe are allowed, or they're not considered vaccines. So even if you had those vaccines, you would have to quarantine. But yeah, I believe all the ones available in the U.S. and in Canada were all accepted.
Okay.
No, they must be, because my sister actually got Johnson & Johnson, and she got into Europe just fine recently. So.
Okay. And here's another one. Another Facebook user said they got a smart QR. They have an app, but they made their own regular QR that led to it. Oh, nice. QR redirect. Fancy.
Nice.
And my Johnson & Johnson was honored in Greece, France, and Ukraine. It's good feedback.
Nice. Yeah, I know. The Green Pass, you can get it there. Like you can go to a pharmacy, and at the very end of the trip, I kind of mentioned it, but I went to a pharmacy and you get a test and they give you a Green Pass that's good for 3 days. Or if you prove to the pharmacy you're vaccinated, they'll give you a Green Pass that you can use. I just never did because the Clear app just sort of worked. So I never needed to, but I believe you can just get it from a pharmacy as well down there.
Okay. And another user recognized that, yeah, J&J is good. And then one other clarification, Russian Sputnik is only good in Greece and Turkey.
Sputnik, that's what I was thinking that, but I was like, no, that was the satellite in the 90s, but yeah. But yeah, and one thing in Italy, so most of the hotels had limited housekeeping. They did have breakfast, so they had breakfast buffets, but none of the hotels would allow you to self-serve on the buffet. So there'd be someone waiting in a kind of roped off section in front of, and you'd have to say, this is where I get to practice my Italian. You could say, I want that pastry, or I want that cheese, or those eggs and things like that. So that's one thing, but they did have breakfast, which is good, because I know in some places in the US there's no breakfast at all. There was the one I stayed at in Florence, they didn't have breakfast, but it was a smaller hotel. So I think that was it was like two guys that ran and operated that hotel. And I think it just wouldn't have been feasible for one of them to sit there and serve out breakfast. But yeah, so they had that, and they did have limited, which is the same in most places in the US, limited housekeeping. But you can always call and say, hey, I need towels, I need soap, and they'll help you. See, Germany is a little different. So the same EU Green Pass, because they're all in the Schengen zone. So I just did the same thing with my Clear app and just details. That worked fine. It's the same kind of thing in Germany. The Green Pass was required on public transportation, museums, restaurants. I did notice in Germany, very few restaurants actually enforced checking your Green Pass. Both in Italy, Germany, and Austria, if you were on a train, someone would come to you and they would scan that before they scanned your train ticket. So they took it seriously. But yeah, in Germany, the restaurants didn't really seem to check it. Hotels did check it. In order to check in, you would have to show your passport, credit card, and vaccine status. One huge difference with Germany and Austria is they have super strict mask rules. So they don't allow like the cloth masks that a lot of people wear in the US, it has to be an FFP2, which is basically an N94, N95 mask. And they're very strict. A couple times at different attractions, I saw people that were American, sometimes British, and they were getting refused entry to places because they would say that's not an FFP mask. I saw someone with like a surgical mask trying to get into a catacomb, and they wouldn't let them in, and they had to go to a store and buy a FFP2 mask. So I for some reason, I usually don't travel with one of those, but maybe it was just because of the long flight, but I happened to bring a Korean N94 mask that I got, and I wore that the whole time, and that was fine. So, but just something to look out for if you're someone that wears like a cloth mask, or you see people with like a bandana or something. Those are a huge no-no there.
Oh, wow. That's very good information.
Same with the surgical masks, which are usually accepted here. Those are also a no-no there. Hotels did not have housekeeping, but you could request it every 3 days if you wanted to, but it wasn't something that was automatically offered. Breakfast buffets were open in Germany, and they were completely full service. There was you didn't have to wait for someone to serve you.
Interesting. So strict on the masks, but not so much food environments. Yeah. And then Austria was very similar to Germany, which isn't that surprising. When I was there, and I think this changed because Austria, I guess, didn't have very good vaccination rates among the young. So I've been hearing on the news they've been kind of locking down a lot of things. But when I went there, masks were optional in most public places if you were vaccinated. So if you could show your vaccine, you didn't have to, but a lot of places recommended it. The Hotel Goldgasse that I stayed at, the nice hotel in Salzburg, they had sort of plexiglass, and she said, "Oh, you can take off your masks," and they had all this aromatherapy and stuff like that. So they're at that time, anyways, they were optional. As long as you were vaccinated, they were optional, and they would check your vaccine thing. But masks were required in museums, and again, they had that same thing where it has to be an FFP2 N94 mask. The housekeeping in Austria was normal. It was completely like it was before COVID, and breakfast buffets were the same thing. Breakfast was open. Everything was self-service. Everything was normal. So you could see there's just little differences in between the places. So, if you are going to go and you're going to bounce around, I would recommend bringing like an N94 mask. That way, if you do end up in a place that requires them, you have it and you don't have to try to go to a convenience store or something and buy one. Right. Yeah, that could put a big dent in your day.
Oh, and then I put one too for coming back to the US. So to get back into the US, I needed a negative antigen test within 3 days of the flight. I believe they just shortened that. It has to be the day before your flight now. As of like yesterday or something. I think they just changed that. And then the vaccination QR code. Yeah. I know in Italy, tourists have to pay for tests. It's free for citizens, but it was like $30, 40, what is that? 20 euro, something like that. And you just go to a pharmacy, and it's set up the same way they have them here in Massachusetts. There's like a little tent outside of the pharmacy in like a parking lot, and you go in there and someone, does the swab, and like in an hour, maybe less than an hour, you get the results emailed to you and you're good to go. And then in Italy, I needed that. They give you like a temporary green pass and they email it to you, and it's a QR code, and you need that to get into the airport. So when we got to the airport, we took the train from Rome to the Rome airport. And then there's like a checkpoint where you have to show your vaccination status before you can get in and like check in for your flight. So to even get into the airport, you had to show that.
And Melanie, a couple people confirmed that is the new standard, 24 hours before instead of 72.
Yeah. Which shouldn't be too bad in Europe because Europe seemed to be just like the US, like tests are either free or low cost and, takes 30 minutes to an hour. But if you have to do a PCR test, I know that can take longer. And then for some other countries, they may not have the same kind of infrastructure like Italy or Germany does. So it may be trickier to kind of get a test. I'm thinking of like Costa Rica, although that wasn't too bad. You had to do a test there too, Joel, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had someone just come to our room through the hotel. Wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
And Rel asks, did you bring your own tests or did you schedule ahead of time?
No, I thought about it actually. When I went to get my test that I needed to go over there, I went to a CVS and they sell is it AbbVie, one of the companies that's actually right across from my condo. But they have like take home tests that I read are approved, but I didn't end up doing it. I just went to a pharmacy, no appointment. I just walked to the pharmacy and both in the US and in Italy, I just walked in and needed a test and they went and they helped me out and got my results within an hour. But I have heard those are one of my friends has been traveling to Europe quite a bit for work and he swears by those home tests. He does the same one, either Abbott or AbbVie. And you get on a Zoom call with a technician, you kind of swab yourself and it's like a little pregnancy test or something and you shake it and you show that you're good and that's sufficient for getting back into the US. I haven't personally done it because I don't know if I could if I would want to do the swab on myself. It's easier to just
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I'd probably ruin several tests from not doing it good enough.
Yeah. So let's see. So I did a quick summary of
real quick before we move on. Mira says that the Abbott has saved her butt in 4 different continents this year so far.
Oh, nice.
I think that's all the questions. Okay.
Yeah, so I just did a quick breakdown on the totals used, and I actually didn't total the cash. I thought I did, but basically for the hotels, it was $18.26 for 17 nights. So that did come out to about $100 a night, which was kind of my target. That's not bad for 17 days in Europe. $500 for the flights, including the positioning, and 25K Hyatt points. But I did earn
that one night. That was all you used points for.
Yeah, it was. There were just so many deals. It was all Rule 1. Crazy deals. Plus, I'm a point hoarder. I save them all for my big trip to Thailand or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, I put for what I earned. I earned 1,600 ultimate rewards, so the Chase points. I earned 3,500 Amex points, 6,800 Hyatt points, 27,000 Hilton points. Now remember, Hilton points are worth probably half of what a Hyatt point's worth. So that's why that number is so large. And then from the flights, I earned 2,500 on Amex and just shy of 8,000 Delta Sky Miles, or Sky Pesos, as all of us Delta flyers call them. So that's not bad. All in, you're looking at about 2,300 for 17 days in Europe. That's a decent deal. And things are starting to open up, like I said, but there's a lot of good prices out there for Rule 1 travel, both on the air side and the hotel side. And the difference in the COVID restrictions was a little weird. Luckily, I had the N94 mask, but a lot of it's similar to what we have in Boston or New York anyway. So I guess it depends where you're coming from and what the current restrictions look like there. I know the US is different in every state, but it really wasn't that bad. Everything was open. Restaurants were open. plenty of wine, plenty of food, and as someone that really doesn't like crowds, and the last time I was in Florence, like that whole piazza was just sort of people walking around and bumping into each other, and this time it was like wide open, and just being able to walk through and kind of take your time looking at things. Really amazing time to get over there. So if you're thinking about a trip, highly recommend it, and Jagu can help you find the best deals to get there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that summary. Oh wait, the crowds, the 2019. Oh, and the points too. You had another 4,400, right, from the Chase portal booking.
Yeah, that's true. I totally forgot they changed that to 10x. Yeah, so yeah, that would have put that right at 5,000 Chase points, right?
Yeah. Yes, 6. So 2,300 bucks, 6,000 points. So you earned 4x Chase points. Well, no, you earned 12x points on your expense.
Yeah.
More than that.
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's funding half of your next trip.
Exactly.
Your next Rule 2 trip.
Exactly.
Well, I think I got to everyone's questions along the way. Anyone who I missed, feel free to type them in. I'll just go back and scroll back. I think it was mostly other people answering other people's questions. Here's one. Brooke has a question that she gets asked all the time. Is there a way to go to Europe if you're not vaccinated at all? Can you quarantine, or is there another workaround?
When I went, there were ways to get in if you're not vaccinated, and quarantine. But I think with the new variant, and then even before this new Omicron variant, like the day after I left Austria, I was hearing about, their numbers were spiking, and they were, even the cab drivers there were telling me basically young people there weren't getting vaccinated. And, right now, people my age, 20 to 40 are the ones getting sick all over the place. So Austria seemed like they ended up in bad shape, but Italy was in pretty good shape. So I don't know. I'd have to look and see how things are changing. I know some of the countries are really locking down with both the new variant and just a huge spike in numbers. But at the time, yeah, there were, like, you could get to Italy and quarantine for 5 days, I want to say, if you weren't vaccinated. And then something else that I know they've been talking about in, like, Germany is if you have a recovery. So if you're not vaccinated but you recovered from COVID, they're talking about relaxing some of the restrictions. But yeah, it's kind of, I think, especially with the new variant, and then some of the way the numbers are going there, it might be tricky if you're not vaccinated. I know basically in Italy, if you're not vaccinated, you can't go into a restaurant, essentially. So you'd be stuck getting Uber Eats to your hotel room, which will still be awesome food, but you definitely miss on some of the experience. But I would check with the sites too, because it is changing a lot, especially now. So I would just check with the sites and see what the situation is.
Okay. And then here's someone else that chimed in France. No, you can't, but Greece apparently you can. So yeah, definitely check on a country by country basis for anything.
Yeah, it seems related to the state of their economy. So you see, like, France and Germany and Italy, well, maybe less so Italy, but they have stronger economies, and so they tend to be able to be stricter with the restrictions, versus Greece is, desperate for people, so they tend to be less restrictive because they want the people. That seems to be the deciding factor. One interesting thing is, once you're in the Schengen zone, there's passport-free travel between countries. So not that I'm advising to do a loophole, but once you're in Italy, you can travel to Austria or Germany or France without ever having your passport checked. You'll still run into the same restrictions where you won't be able to get into museums, you won't be able to go out to eat, you won't be able to go to most indoor venues without a vaccine pass. But theoretically, you could go into one country and then go into other European countries once you're in there. So there may be some loophole type things you can do.
Good feedback here. So we've got a couple other questions. One very important one. Tom, are you going to San Diego in January? All right.
Yep. And me and Daryl are going to do a pub crawl. He doesn't know it yet because he doesn't know who I am. But I told Brooke we're going to.
Watch out. He'll get you in trouble. I had to remind myself that I'm 50 years old, and because I drank like a 20-year-old when I was hanging with Daryl. Let's see. Stanamira just confirming some countries let you test within 24 hours after arriving, and if you test negative, they don't quarantine you. So definitely your mileage may vary. Definitely check as you're going, probably to any country, anywhere. Pub crawl on points. Not advisable use of points.
In Bulgaria, actually. He just got to Bulgaria, and I think he tested when he got right after he got there or something like that to get around quarantine requirements. So.
Yes, Brooke confirmed that Daryl is older than me, and apparently he outdrank me. Of course, I don't know how he looked the next day, so that's how we would compare. Another clarification, not more than a question from Vicky. Hi, Vicky. Welcome to Jay Goot. Yes, everything but happy hours are recorded. So anytime you're late, they're immediately available for replay as soon as we're done. So glad you can join us. Remember, Tuesday, Thursday topics, purely optional. Happy hours, purely optional. What we like you to focus on is on that home study course, because our other topics kind of bounce all over the place. This one wasn't too advanced. It was just more of a basic review of trips and prices and point possibilities. But just remember that if you ever feel overwhelmed, your safe place is the home study course. That's where we want you to, get up to speed on all of the vernacular in this wild and crazy point hacking world of ours. Let's see. Whitney, this was very timely. Planning a trip for Italy this spring. We're planning one in the summer, so great for us. I think we've got time for another question. Melanie says, this may be a question for another time, but we'll squeeze it in now. Do you recommend getting Clear? I have global entry, but this Clear seems to help with showing vaccination requirements. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I swear by Clear. I get it for free from Delta because of my status with Delta, but it's fantastic. So some of it depends on Clear's not available in every airport yet. So if you don't fly through airports with Clear, probably wouldn't help you that much. Amex Platinum actually, I believe, covers $170 of Clear a year, which is good for a couple, basically. So if you have an Amex Platinum, I believe you can get Clear for free as well, or at least significantly discounted. So essentially, if people don't know what Clear does, Clear, it replaces the identification part of TSA. So if you don't need TSA pre-check or global entry for Clear, but essentially the first line you're in either TSA pre-check or regular TSA, where you have to go and show your boarding pass and your ID to somebody, and they scribble something on it or they grunt at you and then point you into a line. Clear gets rid of all that. So Clear, you go in and you either do your biometric fingerprint, or with COVID lately, they've been doing eye scans, and you scan your eye and then they escort you to the front of that line of people waiting to show their IDs. And then you go into whatever TSA screening you would have gone to. So a lot of times there's a Clear to get into pre-check and there's a Clear to get into regular TSA. And for a lot of airports like Boston or New York, where I fly out of those two constantly, especially before COVID, when business travel was still a thing, everyone and their mother had TSA pre-check. So the two lines would just be packed. So Clear, you would save, 30 minutes or more by just bypassing that ID line. But then some airports, aren't that congested. But yeah, and it can also help with the COVID pass. It can have your QR code for your COVID test. And it can also have like specific things for sporting events, like to get into Madison Square Garden, you can use your Clear app, and A lets you cut the line, and B shows your vaccination status. So Clear is definitely cool, and there's some ways to get it for cheap or no cost at all. So yeah, I highly recommend Clear.
Fantastic. So I've got two other questions about Clear. Is it even useful for us to have Clear as far as vax documents are concerned in Europe?
Yeah, they can't scan the QR code, which is a little bit of a drawback, but you can hit the details button. Let me see if I can do it on mine real quick. Sometimes it asks you to revalidate who you are, and you have to take a selfie, which isn't great.
While you're looking that up, Scott confirms having Clear in MCO, that's Kansas City, 2 days ago, was very helpful. Even TSA pre-check. Oh, wait. MCO, that's Orlando, right?
Orlando
is Kansas City. Even pre-check was long, so that cut in the line because of that.
Yeah, mine, it's asking me you have to take a picture to like recognize that it's you to get your details. So I'll spare you that. But yeah, once you get the QR code, you can do show details, and it says like the day you got the shot and the lot number and stuff like that. So, all the museums in Europe, there's a line to check your green pass. So I would basically say, this is the US pass, and hit show details, and they would just look and see. It says Pfizer, it says my name, and it shows 2 shots, and they were okay with that. So for me, it was easier than, carrying like a paper card around. But I know, there's some other apps. So if you do have another app that does the same thing, then, there's not a huge benefit to that over something else. But in general, yeah, I think Clear is a good value.
Good feedback. And I didn't realize that it's also returning to the US. So it's both outbound and return. So you have pre-check for outbound, you have global entry for return, which a quick hack for global entry. If you don't have global entry, you can always get mobile passport, which is fantastic. And sometimes that gives you short lines. But Clear covers both. That's good to know. I obviously don't have Clear, so I didn't know that, but that might bump it up on the list.
Well, you still need the TSA or the global entry, because you get the known traveler number, the KTN. But Clear basically puts you. Sorry, my screensaver. Clear basically puts you in front of those lines, because it skips the identification. Because they all have to, even if you're TSA pre-check, you have to identify yourself to an officer, and they have to check that you have a boarding pass, a reason to be there, and all that. But Clear basically says like, hey, we know this guy, we validated him, or this person, we validated them, and they're good. So you don't have to sit there and wait in line and kind of prove who you are to TSA. You can just kind of waltz on through.
Right. Well, I think that covers all of our questions. Melanie did ask, and I think Sage clarified. But for anyone else, do kids need a Clear account? And Sage confirmed that yes, they do. Minors don't get a free pass through with you. So Sage confirmed with his, I believe, 11-year-old son needs his own Clear account.
It's interesting. Yeah, I don't have any kids, so I didn't know that. I thought with TSA pre-check that like if you have someone under 12 with you, they can go with you. So, but yeah, that makes sense with Clear, because their whole thing is that they identify who you are, and so if if it's someone, they have, even if someone's under 12, they have to be able to identify them to get them through security. So that makes sense, I guess.
Well, Brooke says that children under 18 can go through the Clear line for free when accompanied by a Clear member. No need to add those to your account. Good feedback. All right. Well, that looks like that's all the questions. So, thank you very much. That was very informative, very helpful, very encouraging for people who think you need to turn your life upside down with points. This was clear evidence that you don't. Tom has tons of points, and he hardly used any for this whole trip and still got a phenomenal price for a 17-day vacation at 4-star resorts just on experience and know-how, which is just demonstration of the importance of that balance between rules 1 and 2. So anytime you're getting worried or overwhelmed about, oh, I need to be going and getting more points, not really. Learn to have a good balance between rules 1 and 2, and you'll do just fine. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.